it is the truth that the world and a country like South Africa, which is rich in resources, is a country that trades with the United States of America, and how you deal with land may very well have implications on how they are going to access these important minerals. You are talking uranium, you are talking lithium, you are talking cobalt, you are talking gold. And some of the largest consumers of these products are to be found in the conceptual West, led by the United States of America.
So essentially it's a trade war that
and
started.
Trump is engaged in what I call saber-rattling diplomacy, where he wants an apple, but he asks for the whole orchard so that he can negotiate you down. And when he negotiates you down, he has gotten the apple that he wanted in the first place. And that is sometimes how I understand this very aggressive style of negotiation and this idea of issuing executive orders like confetti.
The air crackles with suspicion. Is it merely land, or is it the glittering promise of untapped resources that fuels international interest in South Africa? We delve into the shadows of power, where the specter of modern-day resource control looms large. This isn't just about soil. It's about the very bedrock of global industry. Are we witnessing a silent scramble for Africa's future? Prepare to question everything you thought you knew. What happens when the lines between private enterprise and state policy blur? The enigmatic partnership between Trump and Musk raises a chilling question. Who truly steers the ship of nations? This isn't just a discussion. It's a high-stakes drama where tech titans and political power brokers intertwine, potentially reshaping the landscape of African sovereignty. Brace yourselves for a deep dive into the complex dance between corporate influence and national destiny. Are we witnessing a repeat of history, where external actors impose solutions without understanding the intricate tapestry of local realities? Lumumba's sharp critique cuts through the rhetoric, exposing the persistent problem of cultural and contextual ignorance. Prepare to confront the uncomfortable truth. Are well-intentioned interventions masking a deeper, more insidious agenda? The narrative is twisted, the intent misconstrued. South Africa's land expropriation policies, born from the bitter legacy of apartheid, become pawns in a global game of political chess. Is it a legitimate quest for redress or a target for external manipulation? This is more than a policy debate. It's a raw confrontation with history, justice, and the enduring scars of inequality. Stay tuned, because the truth is far more complex than the headlines suggest.
All right, Prof, something else that's been happening across the world is that America and Trump and Elon Musk launched what they call DOGE, which is Department of Government something. Which I've forgotten. But basically they're supposed just to oversee how the government is performing.
Effective delivery of services.
Yes. What's your take on that, and how do you think they're doing?
Number one, I always remind people that the President of the United States is the President of the United States. But of course, the United States is a world power, and there is always the tendency to have what I call Pax Americana. And during this administration, we have President Donald J. Trump, whose style is considered by some to be unorthodox. And he has entered into this union with Elon Musk, who, through having control of serious social media platforms, cannot be ignored. And my view is that certain decisions that are being made by the Trump administration, particularly with regard to the continent of Africa, are not founded on understanding the reality. I've seen, for example, the executive order, which was in response to the decision by the South African government and articulated by Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa, who is the president, regarding expropriation of land without compensation, which in the interpretation of the Trump administration is seizing land from the rightful owner. But if you look at the history of land in that country, you have the minority owning the largest size of land in that area. And Elon Musk, who is himself South African, is seen to be the force behind this, with the consequence that we now have a group of Afrikaners who say that they want a two-state solution. So my suggestion is that the Trump administration ought to be properly informed about the reality. And I've been very happy with the manner in which Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa has responded. He said, I'm sending a delegation of individuals to the United States of America to make them understand the history of land and the current status of land. And I hope that when the Trump administration is confronted with the evidence, they will be able to change the position and retract the executive order.
Do you think Elon Musk is not aware, having been born and raised in South Africa, or he's just being racist for no reason?
I think there is a sense in which he's being racist. There is a sense in which he is a prisoner of the past. There is a sense in which he doesn't want to come to grips with the reality of the moment, that if indeed, as was contemplated in 1994 under the South African Constitution, that you want to create a rainbow nation, there must be fairness and equity. And that equity means that we must not continue to give legality to what is fundamentally economic apartheid. A teacher of mine once told me that the last colonial question which must be resolved is the land question. And it cannot be right that nearly over 80% of the population only has access to no more than 20% of the land. It is not sustainable. It is not in the best interest of everybody. And I believe that the time is now to confront it. And one of the things that we must do is to convert Mr. Musk by confronting him with evidence and by persuading him by force of reason that he had better cast his lot with the people of South Africa in their entirety. And I always love to make this statement almost ad nauseum. It was a statement that was made in the 1960s by Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe. When he was asked about race, he said, there is only one race, the human race. I want to remind Elon Musk, there is only one race, the human race.
But what would make Trump, who is miles and miles away from South Africa, really want to meddle in the issues of land in Africa? Because for me, that doesn't make sense.
You know, the world, as we say, is a global village. Yeah. What happens in South Africa, the land tenure systems and the mining systems, it depends on who owns these things. These are factors of production. So it is the truth that the world and a country like South Africa, which is rich in resources, is a country that trades with the United States of America. And how you deal with land may very well have implications on how they are going to access these important minerals. You are talking uranium, you are talking lithium, you are talking cobalt, you are talking gold. And some of the largest consumers of these products are to be found in the conceptual West, led by the United States of America.
So essentially it's a trade war that
and
started.
Trump is engaged in what I call saber-rattling diplomacy, where he wants an apple, but he asks for the whole orchard so that he can negotiate you down. And when he negotiates you down, he has gotten the apple that he wanted in the first place. And that is sometimes how I understand this very aggressive style of negotiation and this idea of issuing executive orders like confetti.
In all this, the other order he gave was saying that he will not, USAID, there's a freeze that was also to affect South Africa. And for South Africa, Ramaphosa responded by saying it's only 17% of the budget, which essentially just funds the HIV/AIDS program. So whether you pull out, and then the minister for, I think, I don't know, minerals and something said, we will pull our minerals from you. So it was almost an equal.
A tit for tat kind of thing.
Yes. So when you look at it from that perspective, what's your take on this whole USAID freeze across Africa? You
know, the USAID freeze, in my view, is not a bad thing. Of course, we will suffer, African countries and individuals will suffer in the short to medium term. But if you have a system that perpetuates dependency for a long time, then it lulls you into a false sense of security. And if African countries and African politicians and civil servants were to stop stealing, we have enough money to do many of these things. Look at the monies that over the years have had to be returned, which are stolen and kept in Europe and America and little islands which are controlled by them. Look at the Mobutu money, the Abacha money, the Madueke money from Sudan, from Nigeria recently. All these monies, if Western Europe and America were to ensure that stolen money is not kept by politicians in their backyard, then we don't need USID.
Just like that.
Oh yeah, we don't need them.
And I'm sure a lot of Africans are looking at Ramaphosa as such a bold man, having stood up for the right of South Africans, essentially. What does that say about him as a leader? And I'm also wondering if it was, let's say, a Kenyan or Ugandan affair, would the president fight in the same vigor?
You know, the Ramaphosa that I'm seeing now is the Ramaphosa that I knew when he was in COSATU. There was a time when he had become very mild, almost kowtowing to the West, but this is the Ramaphosa of COSATU. And remember that what Ramaphosa is saying is what my friend Julius Selo Malema has been saying through the EFF. So there is a sense in which there is a meeting of minds, and this is good for South Africa. But you've also asked another question. We have had leaders who have been bold and who have stood their ground. We have had leaders at certain moments, like him or hate him. President Museveni has been bold on certain occasions. President Paul Kagame has been bold on certain occasions. Thomas Isidore Sankara has been bold on certain occasions. President Traore is bold on certain occasions. So it is not as if there is a shortage of leaders. And of course, Muammar al-Gaddafi, much more recently, has been bold on a number of occasions. So African countries are capable of standing their ground. But the message that is to be sent is that if we were speaking from one standpoint as Africa, our diversity notwithstanding, you can imagine how it would be treated differently.
Well, so it would make such a world power.
Yeah, absolutely.
Finally, what do you think this whole thing will make Malema react on? What will be his end goal with that?
I know that Selo Malema's EFF is going through certain challenges, and this is to be expected in a political environment. Ultimately, I believe that in the South African environment, whether one is Mkhonto Wesizwe, which has Zuma as its leader, or EFF led by Malema, or the ANC, or the PSC, that on this question of land, all of them are reading from the same script. And it is important that they do. I've already seen that the DA, through Helen Zille, have gone to court on this issue that is unconstitutional. But if the freedom fighters come together, their political differences notwithstanding, I think this is the one issue that they must come out and speak with one voice. And I've already seen Julius Selo Malema speaking very firmly on this particular issue. And I think that that is the right thing to do.
Lumumba's emphasis on economic disparities stemming from historical injustices is not merely a passing observation, it's a stark indictment of the enduring legacy of colonialism and apartheid. The land issue in South Africa is not simply a matter of redistribution, it's a confrontation with centuries of systemic dispossession. The economic structures that persist today, characterized by stark inequalities in land ownership and resource access, are direct descendants of these historical injustices. To address them effectively requires more than legislative reform. It demands a fundamental restructuring of economic power, dismantling the very foundations of inequality. This necessitates a comprehensive approach that includes not only land redistribution but also targeted investment in marginalized communities, skills development, and access to capital. Without such a holistic strategy, the promise of economic justice will remain unfulfilled. The 1994 Constitution of South Africa, hailed as a beacon of post-apartheid reconciliation, enshrined the promise of a more equitable society. Yet, the gap between constitutional ideals and lived realities remains a chasm. The call for addressing land equity is, therefore, a call for constitutional fidelity, a demand that the promises of equality and justice be translated into tangible realities. This requires not only political will but also a deep societal commitment to dismantling the structures that perpetuate inequality. It involves confronting uncomfortable truths about the past and present, and engaging in a sustained effort to build a society where the promise of 1994 is finally realized. The connection between Trump's interest in South African land and the country's vast mineral resources is a crucial point that demands closer scrutiny. South Africa's strategic importance in the global economy is undeniable, given its rich deposits of platinum, gold, diamonds, and other essential minerals. This makes it a target for foreign powers seeking to secure access to these resources. The potential for external actors to exploit this strategic importance for their own benefit raises serious concerns about South Africa's sovereignty and economic independence. It underscores the need for a robust and transparent governance framework that protects the country's resources from exploitation and ensures that they benefit the South African people. The linkage of historical statements about race to the current socio-economic landscape is a stark reminder that the past continues to shape the present in profound ways. Racialized economic structures established during the colonial and apartheid eras continued to perpetuate inequality and marginalization. These structures are not merely remnants of the past, they are actively maintained through discriminatory practices and policies. Addressing them requires a comprehensive approach that tackles both the symptoms and the root causes of racial inequality, including systemic discrimination in employment, housing, and access to education and healthcare. South Africa's mineral resources influencing U.S. foreign policy and business interests is a reflection of the global scramble for resources, a phenomenon that poses a significant threat to the sovereignty of resource-rich nations. This competition can lead to exploitative practices, environmental degradation, and the erosion of local control over natural resources. It underscores the need for international cooperation to establish ethical and sustainable resource management practices that prioritize the needs of local communities and protect the environment. Trump's aggressive negotiation tactics, described as saber-rattling diplomacy, represent a challenge to South Africa's sovereignty. The use of bold demands and threats to gain concessions can destabilize diplomatic relations and create an environment of mistrust. It also undermines the principles of mutual respect and cooperation that should govern international relations. South Africa's response, highlighting limited budget impact and potential for retaliatory measures, demonstrates a growing assertiveness in defending its interests. South Africa's response to external pressure demonstrates a growing assertiveness among African nations in defending their interests. This reflects a broader trend of African countries rejecting the paternalistic approach of Western powers and asserting their right to self-determination. This growing assertiveness is a positive development that signals a shift towards more equitable and balanced international order. Key argument that dependence harms African development is a central theme in Lumumba's analysis. The system of dependency, perpetuated by foreign aid and investment, can stifle local innovation, undermine local ownership, and perpetuate economic vulnerability. It creates a cycle of reliance that hinders the development of self-sustaining economies. To break this cycle, African nations must prioritize the development of their own productive capacities, promote local entrepreneurship, and diversify their economies. Tackling corruption is crucial for restoring lost wealth and fostering sustainable development in Africa. Corruption diverts resources away from critical sectors, undermines public trust in governance, and creates an environment that discourages investment and innovation. It is a major obstacle to economic growth and social progress. To address it effectively requires strengthening institutions, promoting transparency and accountability, and fostering a culture of ethical leadership. The assertion that if politicians ceased to steal and Western countries stopped harboring stolen funds, Africa could thrive independently is a powerful statement. It highlights the potential for self-reliance and the need for greater accountability. It also underscores the importance of international cooperation to combat corruption and ensure that stolen assets are returned to their rightful owners. The increasing boldness and unity of African leaders, as noted in the speech summary, is a positive development that signals a growing determination to assert control over their own destinies and resist external interference. This unity is essential for building a stronger and more prosperous Africa. Rosa, aligning with Julius Malema's views, suggesting a convergence of thought beneficial for South Africa, underscores the importance of political alignment on critical issues. Unity among political leaders can strengthen their position in negotiations with foreign powers and enhance their ability to defend their national interests. Strategic alliances are essential for navigating the complex challenges of the 21st century. Historical examples of bold African leaders serve as a source of inspiration and demonstrate the capacity for transformative change. These examples highlight the potential for strong, unified leadership on the continent and underscore the importance of visionary leaders in driving progress and development. The political parties in South Africa aligning on the land issue amidst challenges is a significant development. It demonstrates a shared commitment to addressing historical injustices, despite their internal differences. This unity is essential for achieving meaningful land reform and building a more equitable society. Overcoming internal divisions is essential for achieving meaningful land reform and asserting national sovereignty. It underscores the need for African nations to prioritize unity and cooperation in the face of external pressures.